for Krishna. So he became very attached to Govardhan and Radharani. And he, Raghunath Das, received spontaneous, the most elevated stages of bhakti, not just sadhana. He observed regulations like anything, so this is pastime. But he received the invitation or the gift from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for raga bhakti, as Govardhan can give that, or does give that, for those who are ready to receive it. And he understood the gift that he was receiving. So he worshipped the same Govardhan Shila that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had worshipped. What a gift. So we have Govardhan Shila on our altar also, much larger than the Govardhan Shila of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Raghunath Das, but size doesn't matter. One of the pujaris in South India was explaining the deities on the altar and particularly pointing out that the deity, the main deity, was much larger, and the accompanying deities, their system is Sri and Bhu, are by the side of the Supreme Lord. There's the Utsav Murti, the festival Murti, and then there's the large Murti. So the festival Murti, they worship Sri and Bhu alongside. And Sri and Bhu are often quite miniature. And their point was, they volunteered. I guess they've dealt with some Western people enough to know that Western people are puzzled when the Utsav Murti of Sri and Bhu are so tiny. It doesn't matter the size, it's the principle. So the Govardhan Shila that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu received and gave to Raghunath Das is very tiny. But the principle, Raghunath Das understood. He's giving me, he's granting me, he's gifting me residence at Govardhan. He's gifting me this type of love for Krishna that's on the Raga Bhakti stage. And in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu assigned Raghunath Das Goswami to be under the care of Sarup Damodar. And it became known that he's the Raghu of Sarup because there were a number of Raghunaths. So just to distinguish one from the other, he became known like that, the Raghu of Sarup. And Sarup Damodar understood, because of his spiritual position, he understood everything about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood and who his identity was. He's the one that composed that verse, Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Ladini Shakti. He's the author of that verse. He understood clearly. And he's serving intimately Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he understood his mood and his teachings. And he passed all of that on to Raghunath Das. He really loaded him up. It's just Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't have to explain. He just assigned him to Sarup Damodar, who explained. And then Raghunath Das Goswami achieved the highest possible stages through the worship of Govardhan to grant Raga Bhakti, and through the teachings of Sarup Damodar, who grants Raga Bhakti. So he was on the spontaneous platform by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the ways just mentioned. To get there took a while. Just going back, because this is a Ādi-līlā that accompanies these nice verses. The internal potency, because Caitanya Mahaprabhu is the combined manifestation of Radha and Krishna. So the Radha feature, or the Radha-Krishna feature in Caitanya Mahaprabhu, was absolutely attractive to Raghunath Das Goswami. But his father and uncle didn't want that. They didn't mind regulative, but they wanted him in a regulative way to take on the responsibility of their vast wealth, because he was the only son. And that's the procedure. The wealth is inherited by the eldest son. There wasn't even another son. He was the only son between the two uncles, his uncle and his father. So they wanted to give him and continue the lineage. Raghunath Das had no interest. So rather than the whole story of Raghunath Das, it's just he was in a place where he had attraction for Lord Chaitanya, but there was an obstacle. Now his obstacle was quite formidable. We have obstacles, and it's mainly inside, not so much outside. But we have obstacles. He had obstacles. His was not so much the inside, but it was the outside, his father and his uncle, and their expectations of what he should become. When he tried to get away and tried to get away and tried to go away, they always caught him and brought him back and caught him and brought him back and caught him and brought him back. He was frustrated. So when he heard that Caitanya Mahaprabhu was passing through Shantipur on his way to go see Rupa and Raghunath in Ramakeli, which is in that northerly direction from Puri, he went to Shantipur. And he got the opportunity to share the message with Mahaprabhu. I want to be with you, but there's this obstacle called my father. And he has guards, and so he won't let me come to you. And Lord Chaitanya, this is a Leela, but he instructed him, don't be like this. Spiritual, this is an instruction for us too. Spiritual elevation or spiritual perfection doesn't come quickly. It doesn't come cheaply. Be patient. Be enthusiastic. Utsahan. But nishchayat. Be patient. And while you're being patient, continue to be enthusiastic. It's not go and stop. It's be enthusiastic, but be patient. And while you're being patient, do your worldly duties in a responsible way. So he went back, and he did his duties in a very responsible way. Didn't stop his enthusiasm, but he demonstrated how capable he was. So where does capability come from? It comes from the source of everything. So our and his and anyone's capability comes from the source of everything. So he followed the instruction, and sure enough, in due course of time, as Lord Chaitanya said, it will happen. You will be with me. Anyway, so wonderful, wonderful. The Caitanya Caritamrta, the life of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Ādi-līlā, matches Gaura Tattva. And it's really nourishing to understand Gaura Tattva, which is this chapter, in the background of the Ādi-līlā. Same with Krishna. Hearing Krishna's pastimes, fantastic. And on top of hearing Krishna's pastimes, which are fantastic, understanding Krishna Tattva, along with Krishna Lila, makes them all the more relishable. And our acharyas, the medium of Prabhupada's purports, and prior to him, the written teachings of our great acharyas, it's so relishable. It adds to the flavor of the pastimes of Krishna, same pastimes of Gaura. So whoever decided on reading this chapter, congratulations. And in addition to reading this chapter, read Ādi-līlā and see how the puzzle pieces fit together, because they fit together. The compassion of Srimati Radharani, wanting to see the happiness of Krishna, is Ādi-līlā. And our Acharya is presenting an explanation of both Gaura Tattva and Ādi-līlā. It's to elevate us to that same position. It's really nice. We're a little distracted sometimes, but it's really nice. The process is very relishable. So let's see if there's some discussion. $8.25. Yes. Why don't you start speaking? Go ahead, start speaking.
I'm just wondering about, or if you could explain a bit about the Jiva Tattva.
About what?
Jiva Tattva in regards to the lengthy explanation of these texts about the internal potency, explaining where the Jiva potency fits in this picture.
I don't follow your question. Speak clearly and a little strongly.
Can you explain more about the Jiva Tattva in regards to the explanation that you gave about the internal potency? Just where is the Jiva Tattva internal potency, or is there a completely different category?
Jiva Tattva
Can you explain more about it?
Jiva Tattva. And there's Shakti Tattva, and that's a different Tattva than Jiva Tattva. They may be intersection. There's always intersection. So there's the internal potency is different than the external potency, but there are Shakti Tattvas. And one's in reflection of the other. And the living entity, the Jiva Tattva, is either in contact with this one or that one, or the mix. And that's what's, the unadulterated and pure. It can be adulterated and pure. Depends on where the focus of Chaita or consciousness goes, to this or to that, or mix. Your question specifically is, you want to hear more about Jiva Tattva in relationship with the spiritual potency of Radharani, or the spiritual potency, the internal potency, the external, the Jiva potency. There's an interaction. Always. And where our attention goes has everything to do with our regard for Krishna. Supposing we're not so clear who is Krishna, then it's going to be muddied. At best, mixed. Or misguided, or whatever it is. So, therefore, hearing about Krishna is important. It's an important part of devotional service, because then it brings us closer and closer and closer to the internal potency, which is demonstrated by devotional service. That's sharp and clear and focused on the object by the mercy of the internal potency. Uh-oh. How embarrassing. If anybody has one of those things, do the needful, please. Does that answer? You want to go more on this?
I have like some specific like doubt or some clarification.
Articulate it clearly then, so I can respond.
I guess the difference, specifically I'm wondering the difference, though, like expansions of Krishna's internal potency, they don't have free will, or they're...
Well, wait a minute.
And we have free will. The distinction between Krishna's internal potency.
They have loving free will. They're executing in a loving manner. So if that's your question, do they have free will or not? They have free will.
It's an example of like a doubt of the difference. I don't quite understand the difference between Krishna's internal expansions and then the jiva expansions.
That makes it a little more clear. The tattva is different. I mean, let's back up. There's one source of everything. And that one source of everything has that which comes from him, his expansions. So one of those expansions is jivas. And the likeness of the jiva to the source is the same word as we found in the purport, angsa. Mame bangsa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. Living entities are fragmental parts. So that's what the jiva shakti or jiva tattva is, fragmental part, angsa. And then the category of shakti is not an angsa, but there's other Sanskrit terms, but it's his energy. And his energy is not different than him. That's what we're hearing in this section. Jivas are angsas. In that sense, there's a oneness, but distinctly a difference. In quantitative, the Shakti tattva is not just a quantitative difference, it's another tattva difference. It's the energetic difference. And then there's expansions of the energy. The internal energy has her reflection. Maya. Maya Devi is the reflection of the internal potency. But it's the tattva is different. So in the course of your explaining your question, you wanted to know, at least what I thought you wanted to know is, does Shakti have free will or not? Because living entities have free will, and therefore if they have free will, it sounds like they're kind of like the same. Jivas has free will, Shakti has free will. So living entities can properly use or misuse. That's the tatastha part. And Shakti doesn't. Completely according to the will. Let's take, for example, this is a nice Brahma Samhita verse that gives a definition of Durga. Durga Shrishti Sati Pralaya Sadhana Shakti Reka Chayeva Yasya Bhavanani Vibharti Durga. That verse is describing Durga, and Durga is the external. The external Shrishti Sthiti Pralaya. Now, that's a function of Durga. But wait a minute. It's over there it says that Brahma and Shiva are the creators and the destroyers, and Vishnu is the maintainer. But here it's saying Durga, Srishti, Sthiti, Pralaya. So they are taking assistance from that energy and she has a function. The energy has a function of the energetic. The energetic, Krishna. And they're other servants of Krishna, and they're cooperating together to fulfill Krishna's desire. Doesn't mean, so back to your question, doesn't mean that Durga has no free will. She has free will, and she properly uses her free will to do whatever Krishna wants. That's what Shakti does. She doesn't misuse. But jivas, a distinction is, they're categorically different. Like the spark into the fire, or like the drop of ocean water to the ocean. Tattva is different. But the source is one. So don't expect, sitting here in the temple room, in this very moment, the light's going to go on. Okay, now I understand everything clearly. Don't expect that. I mean, maybe you're God's gift to the world and you'll understand it immediately, but for the rest of us, it takes a while to have the light go on. But the tattva is different. The function is different, as tattvas have different functions. And there's one purpose of everything, and that's Krishna's pleasure. And some misuse it. Shakti tattva doesn't misuse it. Jivas can. There's a significant distinction between the two tattvas. Someone else would like to have a discussion on something. Yes, behind you.
Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the class. Could you please just refresh my Kali Yuga memory about this description with Raghunath Das Goswami, how Caitanya Mahaprabhu presented him the Govardhan Shila. I remember that in Caitanya Caritamrta. But how Lord Chaitanya got the Shila and worshipped it with bathing with tears and thumb. Was it also in Caitanya Caritamrta, or this description comes?
You speak real fast. I think what you're asking is, refresh my memory of how Lord Chaitanya interacted with his Govardhan Shila. That's what you're asking?
Yeah, where the description comes from.
Where that description comes from? It's in Caitanya Caritamrta.
Okay.
And there's also same description, because it's the source is Srup Damodar, because he experienced. And Raghunath Das heard from Srup Damodar, so he knew. And Raghunath Das explained what he heard from Srup Damodar to Krishna Das, who wrote it. So that's the line. Srup Damodar experienced intimately and perfectly understood what he experienced. His lights were full bright by the mercy of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And he explained to Raghunath, who explained to Krishna Das, who wrote it. That's the source.
Thank you.
We're deeply indebted to Srup Damodar. No, we're not. It's nice to know it. Anyone else?
Just curious about the word adulterated. I don't, like in English the word adult means someone who's mature or something, but I don't know how adulterated gets the connotation of sort of imperfect or something.
I got about 20%. Could you repeat what he said? Just, you don't need the microphone. Just tell me.
He said, we use the word
Adulterated.
adult in the sense of a mature person. He's an adult.
Adult, okay.
But adulterated means something that's not happening.
Okay, so he's looking for etymology, word meanings. They're not connected. To my understanding, adulterated has a specific